Welcome to So Many Receipts. I'm Fleur Michelle.
And I'm Shelley Seddon.
And we are two entertainment journos based in Sydney, Australia, who love to analyse and talk about all things reality TV and pop culture.
In From the Vault, we share with you the stories and chats from our time in the media trenches.
We have a very special guest this week, former Weekend Sunrise newsreader, Talitha Cummins turned jeweller. Talitha is now the founder of The Cut Jewellery, creators of bespoke high-quality diamond rings and fine jewellery using lab-grown diamonds. And you can check out their full range at thecutjewellery.com.au. We're going to be talking to Talitha about her past life as a newsreader and her very brave journey with alcoholism and recovery. And of course, we're going to talk about the utter fabulousness of lab-grown diamonds. Talitha, welcome to So Many Receipts.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, we are thrilled to have you.
So Talitha, lab-grown diamonds seem to be so popular at the moment. I'm reading all of my fashion girlies on Substack, and they are obsessed with this whole thing. It's like this huge movement and trend with brands like Dorsey in the US. And I just read a figure that the industry will grow to $50 billion US dollars by 2030. So I really think that you're onto something amazing. But can you just tell us in layman's terms, like, don't get scientific on us, how do you grow diamonds in a lab and how long does it take?
Okay, so yes, there has been a huge amount of growth in a very short time, basically because the technology has been around since the 1950s, but only in the last 10 years has it been refined enough to have these beautiful high quality jewels that, you know, are good enough to wear on our person. So essentially there's two methods. I'm not going to get sciencey. I will explain the most basic of them, which is HT, high pressure, high temperature. Essentially you get the slice of a very high quality natural diamond. You put it in a chamber, apply high pressure and high temperature to that over a series of weeks to a couple of months. The rough will then grow and that will then be taken and cut into a diamond.
Amazing.
That is amazing. And we can see on the website for The Cut Jewellery that you produce a range of really stunning jewellery pieces, everything from rings to necklaces to bracelets and earrings. With the rings, what is the most popular shape for engagement rings these days?
The oval, so it was the round brilliant cut for a long time, but the oval has definitely, coming close to that now as in popularity. I particularly like an emerald cut. And, you know, emerald cut trilogies, lots of trilogy rings. So the rings with 3 stones are very popular as well at the moment.
Yeah, because I always remember in an episode of Sex and the City, was it Aidan, where he gave Carrie a pear-shaped diamond ring, and some of the ladies were like, "Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Oh, he's not a keeper."
Fashion.
But I love that because I love unusual shaped rings. My engagement ring is actually a heart shaped with lots of little diamonds, and it's so unusual. I love that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think of all these different shapes?
I love unique pieces and I love the unusual. Obviously, they're a lot of fun to do. We do sell a lot of oval diamonds as well. And in terms of Aidan buying the wrong diamond, that happens rarely now because with the growth of lab-grown diamonds has, you know, the rules have been thrown out, you know, the so-called 3-month salary for an engagement ring rule. There were all these rules that existed. And now couples are shopping together. So the surprise, you know, both of them are coming in, doing a consultation, deciding on the ring that they want, and then the surprise will be within the proposal. So times are very different now. The rules have been thrown out and, you know, whatever goes, really. People are using colored gemstones also for engagement rings. It's the market has really opened up in that way.
So other lab-grown diamonds just as brilliant as traditional diamonds? And what's the typical sort of price difference?
Yeah, so they're chemically, physically, and visually the same as a diamond that is grown from the earth. Essentially, it's pressurized carbon. So whether it comes from a lab or it comes from a mine, the end result is pressurized carbon. So, people say, oh, but I can tell they look fake. And typically what I say to that is that lab-grown diamonds are typically purchased in the very high color range, so the highest quality. Our eyes aren't used to seeing those colors because in natural diamonds, that makes them quite cost prohibitive. So the market has been flooded with, diamonds in the near colorless range for a long time. So now people are seeing these bright white diamonds and saying, oh, they're fake, they're not real, but it's actually not the case.
Yep. And they're quite a good price point.
Yes. So let me think price. So 3 carat. So a 3 carat round brilliant cut, for example, you're looking at about the $60,000 to $65,000 mark, depending on, color and clarity. And for a lab grown, around the $9,000 to $9,500 mark. So it's with the same craftsmanship, it's with the same setting, design, all those sorts of things. It's just a diamond that has come from a different source.
Amazing.
Awesome.
So when I was getting engaged, I was obsessed with Asher cut diamonds. And so I went to the jewelry store to with my future husband to pick out my ring. And they showed me the Asher cut diamond. And then they showed me like a cushion cut diamond. And I could get such a bigger cushion cut diamond. I didn't go with the Asher diamond, but now I was so excited to read you guys do Asher cuts because maybe I could afford an Asher cut diamond now.
Yes, you could. Actually, we've just done a beautiful 4 carat Asher cut. So yeah, you're right. The Asher cuts face up a little bit smaller. So you definitely need to go up in size when you're buying an Asher. But yes, we can source lab diamonds in all different cuts, colors, shapes. They're cut in the same way. They're certified by the GAA in the same way. They're amazing.
Yeah, well, that leads into my next question. I was wondering if you were going to consider things like emeralds or sapphires or colored stones. So you do that.
Yes, so we do. I mean, we can access everything. So it's essentially everything from lab grown diamonds to natural diamonds. I came into this business thinking I love labs and I just want to focus on labs. But then I realized, and my uncle, who has been in the industry for 50 odd years, said to me, it's not about us and what we want to sell. It's about what the client wants from you. So it kind of opened my mind to just being open to everything. So now we can source any type of stone for our clients.
Actually, I just saw today on Instagram, Jacqui from MAFS with her engagement ring. She did a post about it. Did you see? It's like a
oh my gosh, are they engaged?
Yeah, it's a 5 carat.
So I'm so behind.
Let's catch you up. It's a 5 carat lab grown diamond engagement ring.
Right.
She mentions that, and she said she liked the sustainability factor of it all. Talitha, we saw them get engaged in front of our own eyes at a very classy place. It was the So Dramatic MAFS final reunion. What was it? The
viewing,
the viewing party.
Yep.
In front of about
really
300 crazy fans and journos and us as well at a nightclub here in Sydney, put on by So Dramatic, the website.
They'll be able to tell their grandchildren. Yeah.
You must feel so blessed. You were part of that.
We were part of it.
MAFS is one of those shows that no one likes to admit that they're watching, but the ratings are very high. So lots of people are watching, aren't they?
Oh, it is crazy, crazy, crazy. So let's just shift gears for a bit. You were a well-known newsreader for 20 years. Why did you want to make the switch from media to jewellery?
Sure. So when I had my little boy in 2016, I left the industry, and there are some articles about the reason why I left the industry. I sort of I've signed a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't really talk too much about that. But after that, I spent 4 or 5 years just, I don't know, milling around, trying communications, trying PR. I did a day at the Weather Bureau. I was doing just one day. I don't think I was for it, or it was for me, one of those two. And then media training. And I just thought, I'm not satisfied. I'm not enjoying this. So one day my uncle, who has been in the industry for a long time, gave me a call and just said, I think you would be loving this industry. The bespoke arm of our business, his business in Victoria, is going really well. People want things made especially for them. They don't want them off the rack. And I think if you went to study, you could come and join us, or you could do a business of your own and I could mentor you. So I wasn't convinced to begin with, because I just thought, I'm a journalist, like I've got these weird set of skills. I can talk to people and I can analyze things and I can ask questions, but how am I going to shift that mindset to selling something? It was a really hard, it was a big dilemma for me. But anyway, I thought I'll start studying. So I did the Gemological Institute of America. I did an online course for about 9 months, and then I quite enjoyed that. And then went to London to the GIA to do the laboratory, a 5-day grading course, diamond grading course. And at the end of that, I was in love. I was just fascinated. It's such a fascinating industry. And then I, discovered lab diamonds while I was there. And I guess a business was sort of born that week, because I came away from it thinking, no, this is something I can really do. And I love the fresh new angle of being able to supply lab growns, because that really excited me, and giving the market a choice where just for such a long time they haven't had a choice.
So I just wanted to ask you about leaving journalism just a little bit more. So like many people, especially journalists, we've had to reinvent ourselves just because of the changing face of media these days. And Fleur and I have both had to pivot over the years. And, I found it very hard saying goodbye to my journalism career. I briefly went into business and did something completely different as well. And that's kind of why we started this podcast, just because we, wanted to do journalism again, because we missed it so much. And, so how has it been, just like reinventing yourself? Like, my thing was like, when you go to a dinner party and someone's like, oh, what do you do? And I always used to say, oh, I'm an entertainment journalist. And everyone's like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And, like with you, you'd be like, oh, I'm a newsreader. And everyone's like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And, you kind of lose your identity. So it's just like, how have you dealt with not doing journalism anymore?
Oh, I definitely went through a big stage where I was lost. And I think in that 5 years between journalism and my new career, it was really disheartening. I'd had then 2 kids during that time. I just felt like, I don't know, that I didn't really belong anywhere. The advertising dollars were moving away from the industry as well. So I just sort of looked at it as not a great thing to be going back into. And I guess I sort of lost my identity for a while, because as much as we don't like to admit it, if you're in a career like that, it becomes your identity to a certain degree. And especially over periods of years and years, you are that person. You are that journalist, that TV person. And there was a definite, changing of the guard in terms of me having to let go of who that person was and realize and acknowledge that was done. That being said, I still I love what I'm doing now, and I love business and the mechanics of it, and I feel like I have finally found my place. I don't necessarily think I felt like that in media. So, despite doing, hours and hours and hours and hours over the years of live television, I never really felt at ease. There was always a lot of anxiety. It was always quite unnerving. So, and speaking in front of crowds, which was part and parcel of my career as well. So there was a lot of time that I spent quite uneasy. So I was happy to let that go. But there are things now, like big events, elections, or I see what's happening over in the US, and I think, wow, that'd be great. Or a cyclone, it'd be great to go and chase that for a while. But the reality is that it's just not for me anymore. And I've just had to accept that.
So what was the anxiety about?
I think it's just, I think it had a lot to do with failure and, not feeling confident in myself, and sort of, it was a sense of faking it until you're making it in the younger days. And I was in a state where I was too afraid to ask. And I was surrounded by some amazing journalists. And I just wish, if there's one regret that I have, I just wish I have asked for help and, not pretended that I knew what I was doing and just muddled my way through it. I mean, no one would have known it from the outside, but I could have made life a lot easier for myself had I, taken mentors or taken counsel from people who are more experienced.
Because I think we assume that anybody on TV, like a news presenter, TV presenter, newsreader, would have bags of confidence, especially when you're reporting live, and there's no second take. But are you saying that sometimes you didn't really feel that confident, even though you looked to be so confident?
Totally. I have the fortunate or unfortunate, I don't know what it is, ability to portray confidence, even though even if I'm not feeling it. So, and that was almost like a mask that I put on. I've heard, singers or dancers like Beyonce. I'm not comparing myself with Beyonce, but I remember her saying one day that she has this persona when she gets onto the stage and she becomes a different person. And I think in a sense, I was a bit like that as well. And if I wasn't feeling the confidence, then I was this person, I was a different person.
So even though you had a lot of excitement about the new career in jewellery, did you feel a certain sense of sadness as well, walking away from a 20-year media career?
For sure, yeah. Sadness, and there was a bit of regret that I hadn't. Well, look, I'd set out to achieve. I wanted to get to Sydney. I was from Queensland. I worked all up and down the eastern seaboard, and then I wanted to ultimately get to Sydney. I ticked all of those boxes, but I never really felt like I owned what I was doing, if that makes sense. Like, I think I could have done it better.
Okay.
So, there's from time to time some regret over that, but I don't lose sleep over it at night. But if I was looking back and advising someone or my younger self, it would be to, really seek counsel from people who know more than you, because the experience now that I've had with my uncle, and me asking him all of the questions, all of the dumb questions, all of the, and getting his insights has just been so helpful and more helpful than anything.
Yeah. This is going to sound a bit of a funny question, but going from public figure to regular civilian, was it a bit of a shock not to get recognized, almost like to fade into society? Was it a relief?
It was so good. It was a relief. I wanted to close down my Instagram and Facebook and, and just become, just a normal person that didn't work on TV and didn't. And my husband sort of said, well, don't. You've amassed very little following, but you've got people who are following you, and one day you don't know what you're going to be doing. So I sort of left it all open and healed myself, I guess, in a way, and found ways to move forward.
And just something I've always wanted to know too, is it fun being a newsreader?
It is. I mean, it was fun being a journalist. It was a fun career. You do things that you would never normally do. Sometimes I just think back and, when there was an earthquake in Christchurch and the airports were closed and we had to borrow a jet from Lindsay Fox and Koshy and I think Mel at that stage. They were all sitting on the plane, and there's just surreal moments like that, meeting prime ministers, seeing the floods happen in Queensland, and then the community come together to just work to help each other. All amazing moments like that you'd never get to experience as a civilian, I guess. Yeah.
So you've been very honest about your battle with alcoholism whilst you were a newsreader. And I watched your Australian story, and you said that you muddled through, but like watching the Australian story, you were so polished and you were so together. Like looking in from the outside, you did hide it very well. You looked so together. But can you tell us, back during that time when you were battling, can you share a bit more of your journey, what you went through?
Yeah, so well, thank you. It didn't feel like I was together. It was kind of like a broken egg on the floor and trying to scrape it all together again at times. But yeah, as I said, I developed that persona where I could just flick a switch and essentially become this focused, centered person and perform my role. Um, Little did the audience or a lot of people know that I was going home and drinking numerous bottles of wine a night. When I would have one drink, I would never know when that was going to end. I just couldn't control it. It was out of control. I was ending up in hospitals, very undignified, and it was just the complete opposite to the life that I was leading in my professional life. But it wasn't until I didn't turn up for work a couple of weekends in a row, and it was impacting the way the newsroom was operating. Other people were having to get called in, and then my chief of staff, she was a lovely, strong lady, sat me down in the boardroom, I remember, on the Monday, and just said, "You're not okay, are you?" And I just said, "No." And that work facade had sort of crumbled, and I feel like everyone was sort of on to me at that point, and they were recognizing, and that sharp, polished Talitha wasn't that way anymore. And that's when I finally realized that I needed to get help. And I went to AA that night, and I went 90 days in a row, and I committed to getting better that time. I mean, prior to that, there were a number of times when I tried, been to AA, walked out and drank, but so it sounds like it was a really easy thing to achieve. It wasn't. It was years and years of me trying to stop and control it.
So aside from that period at the end where your boss talked to you and you said people were onto you, but for the most part, were they onto you? Did you manage to hide it for a long time, do you think, or
Yes.
did it come back later that there were whispers that people already knew?
There were always whispers, apparently, but it was like we worked in journalism, like it's a very high pressure industry. There's a daily deadline. You need to have your story, the things that you have to achieve between, 8 a.m. and then 5 p.m. when that story has to be edited and then go to air at 6. There's a lot, so it's high pressure all the time. You're constantly running. So at the end of the day, it's a very common thing to have drinks and drink to relieve that pressure, just like a lot of jobs, like lawyers and all different industries. So it was kind of masked, and it was acceptable in a way, but as I got older and older, it was starting to sort of become less so, It might be okay when you're drinking like that in your early 20s, but when you're in your 30s and you're falling down stairs at a restaurant with friends, or, ending up in hospital to have your stomach pumped after a dinner, it kind of becomes a bit different.
Yeah, of course. And how would you feel having to read early morning news after a night of heavy drinking?
Yeah, and it wasn't great. And I was never drinking on the job, but
did you have horrendous hangovers, or
no,
were
I
you
never had
used
a
to it?
hangover.
Okay.
No, I never. Yeah, it was, and I don't know whether that's a psychological thing or whether it was me just having to go into that mode. But as soon as I washed my hair, blow dried my hair, had that makeup on, I was good to go. It was showtime, so to speak.
Was your drinking to help you deal with your anxiety, basically?
Yeah, I think so. And, a lack of confidence and things from childhood, it's a tool that is used for self-medication widely around the world. And unfortunately, I also have a very addictive personality. So if I'm doing something, I'm doing it to the nth degree, and my uncle said it to me when I started the business, and a few months down the track, he said, "Oh, I thought you'd do well, but I didn't expect that you'd blow the doors off the hinges within a couple of months, you know." But that's just me. It's just that's what I do. It's intrinsically built in that I'll take it to the nth degree. Eating, running, cycling, whatever.
Yeah. So you mentioned AA. Was there other things you did to help you stop drinking? And what is your advice to people in similar position as to where you were back then?
Yeah, I really had to hibernate, and I hibernated for months. Even it was probably into the years. I found it really hard to go to parties. I felt really awkward and anxious at social occasions, and I still do, to some degree, unless it's with my close friends. But I've got a very close. They're not even a circle of friends, but I've got my really good friends who are very close, and where I feel most comfortable now. And it's not being at a party where people are drinking, and it's just the reality of my life now. And I don't know where I would have been, but it was not heading in a positive direction. And I honestly don't know if I'd be here if I had not stopped drinking.
And
So I didn't have a choice.
And you've also mentioned that in replacing alcohol, that sugar was kind of an addiction as well. Well, because, the alcohol does turn into sugar. So, of course, your body would be craving that. And so now you have to deal with the sugar addiction as well. So how did you move through that?
Yeah. So sugar's hard because it's more accessible than alcohol. It's in everything.
It is.
It's available. It's something that we use as a treat to ourselves. And so, at times over the last few years, I've used it in the same way that I've used alcohol. And I was eating a lot of sugar and binge eating at some stages. And so it's just been another thing that I've had to try to keep under wraps. I know now that I have to go cold turkey, and then after 5 days, I lose the cravings. And then after 8 days, I don't want it anymore and I feel good. But it's a process again. But the more you learn about how you work and what works for you, the better it is. And now I can laugh at it and just think, okay. But it's the same thing with sugar. As soon as I have one chocolate, it's on again, just like it was with alcohol. So it's just an unfortunate part of my personality. But at least I know now, and I can, deal with it accordingly.
Yeah. And I was also curious because I happened to come across this drug called naltrexone. And it was just when I was sick, and I was prescribed it for some inflammation. And one of the side effects was that you have zero cravings for alcohol. And I later found out that it actually is used to treat alcohol addiction. And I just wonder why this isn't prescribed more when people are battling for their lives. And you think about alcohol 24/7, and this is actually really effective. And I'm just wondering why people don't use it more to deal with alcoholism. And I wondered what your thoughts were about using medication to try and combat it.
Absolutely. It is used, and it is prescribed for people who have drinking, problems with drinking. There's also another drug. It was called, I think, Antabuse in the day. So I was on both of these, on naltrexone as well.
Okay.
So Antabuse, you would vomit if you had alcohol in your system. So for me, I remember those first 90 days, it was like an insurance policy. So, I took those drugs, and that got me through the first 90 days to try to deter me from, to have that assistance. And I think whatever you need to do to be able to stop. So I personally, I'm not a doctor, but I found that it worked great for me. It was a peace of mind thing.
Interesting.
Do you still social drink, Talitha?
No. I haven't had a drink in, I think it's so funny. I used to count the days and know exact days, but now I think it's 12 going into 13 years this year. So yeah, I can't. I know,
Yeah.
and I know with that addiction, and I see it with the sugar, I know that that addiction is alive and well in me. And I think, I might have, if I had a glass of wine or something, I might be okay for a day, but I think before long I'd be back doing the same thing. So I just accept now that it's just one of the many things in the whole world that I just can't do, and
Yeah.
it's just a part of who I am now.
What do you drink when you're out? Do you drink mocktails or fake
No,
wine or just like normal soft
I
drink?
can't. I drink diet. I have a Diet Coke, a Coke Zero addiction.
Well, there's my Diet
Also,
Coke. My Diet Coke.
Your Diet Coke.
Yeah.
Terrible,
right.
terrible. And I go through stages where I have to ban that. Coffee addiction, like all of those substances. Yeah, I have to really monitor the way that I intake caffeine and things like that because it just gets away from me. And before you know it, I'm drinking 2 liters of Coke Zero a day.
Yeah, we can we can identify. Finally, what is your favorite type of ring personally, and what is next for the cut jewelry?
So my favorite ring would be, I think, an emerald cut with trapezoids on the side. It was Grace
Mhm.
Kelly's original engagement ring, and I just love it because it's classic and timeless. As for the cut, we are about to open our second showroom, this time in the city, in the CBD. I've just hired my first full-time staff member.
Mhm.
And we are, so about 40% of our audience through Instagram is in America, and our client base around 40% is in America now. So we are going to head to the States at some time this year to start off doing some trunk shows. So that's quite exciting.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
So where are your physical stores exactly?
So we're in a showroom in Libertine in Paddington,
Mhm.
and then our new showroom will be in the St James Trust building in on Castlereagh Street in the city.
And will you be there quite often yourself?
Yes, so we are by appointment, but you can make an appointment to come in and have a chat with us.
Incredible. Well, Talitha, it
So
has
good.
been fantastic chatting to you about jewelry and media. Thank you for coming on.
My absolute pleasure. Lovely chatting with you both. Thank you for having me.
And go to thecutjewellery.com.au to find out more about those fabulous diamonds and stunning pieces. They are absolutely exquisite and well done.
Thank you.